Welcome to the Coach Speak podcast, built for coaches, by coaches, hosted by Jamie Bolton and Dustin Martin, sponsored by Ray Crowther, providing athletic training equipment since 1932, helping you dominate with fundamentals.
Hey guys, welcome back to Coach Speak. Dustin Martin here with Jamie Bolton. Tonight we got a special guest, Haruki Nakamura, a great dude. Got to coach with him the last 2 years, and man, he hits the golf ball the furthest I have ever seen anybody. We played in the golf tournament, and he won both longest drive contests. But before we get going, I want to shout out to our sponsor, Team Builder. They're the #1 software for strength and conditioning coaches. So Bolton, open us up. Tell us a little bit about Coach Nakamura.
Yeah, we're excited to have him on. We're going to talk a little bit about his background at the University of Cincinnati. He got drafted into the NFL in the 6th round by the Ravens and ended up playing with the Panthers as well. We're going to talk about all those college and NFL lessons and how he transitioned to coaching, and then also talk about his unique coaching style. I didn't have a chance to coach with him. I left right before he came on, so we're really excited to get started. And Coach, thank you. It's an honor to have you on with your expertise at all these levels, and we're just so excited for our listeners to be able to hear from you.
No, thank you very much for having me on. I love what you guys got going on. I think, with so many people that are passionate about football, and there's so many people that really don't want to give it up. And one of the ways you can obviously stay involved is coaching. And then in some circumstances, there's some people that are out there that don't want to let it go for bad reasons. And there's some people who don't want to let it go because it's just something that's ingrained in them. So coaching's a really good opportunity for a lot of people to stay involved, and it's another way. Dustin knows this, and I talked to the team when you were there the 1 year, but it's just another way to give back and influence the future and mold the future. I think football is one of the only last sports where you can truly build a family bond of brotherhood where you're dependent on each other. Everything happens on a football field that happens on a football field affects each other, from the coaching staff to the players to the training staff. It's just a very unique family situation. So when you do it right and you're part of something good, it impacts a lot of people.
No doubt, Coach. Coach, before we get going, man, hang on. I got to throw something up here real quick. Hey, man.
That's it.
Hey, man, I thought you were a safeties. Man, you up there looking like Brett Favre, dude. Like,
and I have no idea where that's from. Those look like, those are the old school cutter gloves too. Those things were sticky.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys can't see it, it's a picture of Coach Nakamura in his Ravens jersey, leaned way back, throwing a Hail Mary pass, like just a beautiful shot, man.
Yeah,
like,
with one of my probably 5 different haircuts I had in the league too. So.
Looks fantastic.
No, man, I remember, man, rookie, first time we met, it was a very unique situation. I was about 2 days into the job, and we had this big dinner. We'll refer to it as the Last Supper is kind of how I look at it. But it was I had taken over a program, and they brought in all these outside consultants on what to do to fix the program. And I was sitting beside Rookie, and like I could just tell the questions he was bringing up and the topics he was talking about. I was like, man, this dude knows football. He knows what it takes. And, without knowing all of your background, I knew you were a good dude and do it for the right reasons. So super excited to have you on here. And Bolton, go ahead and let's get us going on this today.
Yeah, so I really want to know, a lot about, you obviously a successful career at Cincinnati, successful career in the NFL. A lot of guys, you're in the league for a long time. I know that can be very difficult. But I guess what I want to know most is, who are your biggest influences as a young player growing up? Who did you look to? Was it coaches? Was it players? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Man, this is gonna kill you guys. But so I grew up in Cleveland, like 30 minutes west of Cleveland, Ohio, little Rust Belt town, Leary, Ohio, and didn't start playing football till 6th grade. And about the same exact time that was going on, that the Browns were actually gone. The Browns had moved to Baltimore, so we really didn't have a hometown team. But that 6th grade year, I just loved it. I was a kind of an angry, raging kid, and 6th grade, you're starting to get ready into those teenage years, and the Buccaneers were really taking off. I loved, John Lynch, Derek Brooks, all those guys, work done on Mike Allstott, all this. It just, everything, the way they played. Gruden was a maniac, right? Like it was just like, it was perfect. But, one of the it's gonna sound crazy, but Waterboy was coming out around that same exact time, so it was just, I mean,
Perfect storm.
oh, dude, it was perfect,
We
so
said tackling fuel.
tackling fuel. And the thing is, dude, like I mean, how many, and again, we did judo growing up, and it's a very disciplined sport, but there's not too many opportunities in your life where you can just be ruthlessly physical, like and when you're young, I mean, the chances of really getting hurt are kind of slim. You're built to survive, right? I mean, you're not necessarily at the age where all your joints are going to break right away. But I mean, I played through broken bones when I was in my youth years. I broke my wrist a couple times, but it was just funny, man. It seemed like when I started really liking football, man, all the different elements of physicality just kept popping up as examples of the way to play. So it kind of really took
All the movies back
all,
then. You had
dude,
like the
the
program.
program. That's right.
You had like Any Given Sunday. You had like
Yeah,
I mean, it was
and I and I
all the
gotta
craziness.
and I gotta say, man, I feel like my generation was the last real generation of coaches like talking about just being, I mean, Dustin knows always talk about being a destroyer, just being an absolute killer. Just it's not necessarily just the wins and losses that you look at. You want to see how many kids don't play the next week after they played you. Like those were things we used to think about. We used to like, what's the injury list look like after they play us? And it wasn't to hurt anybody. That wasn't the idea. The idea was to play so freaking physical that kids either thought twice about playing again, or they probably had to sit out the next week. It's a fist fight. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like that. But that was part of the generation too. Everything fed towards that.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, I know over the last 2 years, we would watch film and, a lot of times we would come in, we wouldn't necessarily be worried about the scheme we were seeing, but there were times we'd come in and you'd be like, dude, you'd hit that dude. And anytime you hit that dude, it was like, these dudes are freaking tough. Like
Yeah.
that's what we were worried about. It was like
Yeah.
that grit, that toughness.
Yes.
And I'll never forget anytime Rookie was like, yeah, I'm not really worried about their scheme, but dude, I was like, oh man, like I already know. But no, man, tell us a little bit about just your high school, playing high school ball and how that kind of led you into college. Tell us a little bit about that.
Man, I gotta say that my life I'm a very, very lucky person. Very lucky to be born into the family I was born into. We had no money. Money was definitely not it. But, my dad came to the United States, traveled the world to chase his passion of teaching judo and spreading the sport of judo around the world. We were born and raised into that. We were taught at a very young age. It was a lifestyle for us. It was our discipline. It was our lifestyle. Everything that we did was geared toward being the best judo competitors that we could possibly. My dad's goals was for us to be Olympic champions. No money in judo, zero money in judo. Like we had our own judo school, but it was just, it was basically for us to practice and sharpen our skills. My dad died when I was young, and my dad was 8th degree black belt. My mom was a 4th degree black belt. But you know, my dad died, and Dustin knows. I told him this story, but when I say lucky, I am so lucky to have the mother that I had, and then so lucky that my mom and dad were such amazing people and surrounded themselves with amazing people through the judo community, through the wrestling community, through the Northeast Ohio community. Because after my dad died, there were so many people who looked out for our family because they knew we were a very talented group of people. So, my dad dies, and one of my dad's best friends, he was the women's Olympic wrestling coach, and at the time he was coaching at the high school that we ended up going to, which was Lakewood St. Edward High School. And if anybody wants to do a little rundown of what elite high schools look like, um, it's prestigious. I mean, I think they just won their 48th state championship in wrestling, the big school Division 1 in Ohio. They've won in the last, I think in the last 10, 11 years, they've won 6 or 7 state championships in football. I think they have the most state championships in any school in the state of Ohio. Like it's an unbelievably, decorated school athletically, but more importantly, it developed great young men. It's a it's a private school, it's a private Catholic school, all male private Catholic school. But we were built more out of that blue collar community. It wasn't the white collar. These people, the families that were sending their kids to these schools, they're basically spending kind of every last extra dollar they could to give them a chance to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So it the kids who went there understood why they were going there. They understood what sacrifices were being made for the kids to go there. It was just an unbelievable place. But the high school coach that I had there, he was old school. His name was John Gibbons. He's unbelievable, unbelievable. But those pregame speeches were the spit and slobbering, just, oh man, he's got some of the greatest lines of pregame speeches I could ever. But there was this one. So our rival was St. Ignatius High School, and they had people like Tony Gonzalez, who was the Ohio State receiver, first round pick to Indianapolis. They had Brian Hoyer. Obviously, everyone knows he's a long tenured NFL quarterback. Had a lot of really good players. They were our rival, but the coach at the time there is a guy named Chuck Kyle. He had won like 11 state championships. And the years before my senior year, we just couldn't. We would win a bunch of regular season games, just couldn't get over the hump. But my senior year comes up, and we didn't necessarily have the greatest track record. We were terrible, kind of in freshman year. Our JV team wasn't that great, but by the time we got to seniors, man, we were a bunch of sickos. Like, we were just a bunch of crazy dudes, and a big part of it was the influence of the older guys. Those guys were winners. Those guys were success. They never really got over that hump, but we're playing this our rival against St. Ignatius, and coach is just getting it. He's all juiced up. He's spitting. He's slobbering, and he gets to this point, and it goes back to what I was saying before. He goes, you got to strap up your boots. You got to hit him. You got to hit him again. He's like, you don't trash him. You don't say nothing. You just keep banging him and banging him, banging him. And he said, just make sure you keep that trainer busy all night long. And we were just like, oh, it's over.
That's awesome.
The thing is, I think we ended up putting like 3 or 4 dudes in the hospital that game, but we lost.
You didn't beat them, but the team next week had a much better
That's right.
chance.
They didn't win the next week. But anyways, it's just, we ended up, the funny thing is of all the classes, we had so many great classes that came through that school. The last time that the high school had been to the state championship was actually 1986, and this was 2003 season. And fortunately, my class was able to make it to the state championship game for the first time in all those years. We ended up losing to a team that was the defending state champion. Their starting running back actually ended up being my teammate. A couple of their guys on that team ended up being my teammates at Cincinnati. I think they were number 2 or something like that in USA Today that year. They were ridiculous. But that was Cincinnati Elder. But I was part of great football in high school, great coaching. I mean, unbelievable. The guy who was the defensive coordinator and the reason I played safety my senior year in high school, he ended up coming right before the season, or it was mid-season. I can't remember how it worked out, but he was the reason. I only played receiver up to my freshman year, played quarterback, sophomore year, played quarterback. I was third string varsity. I always tell this, third string varsity quarterback to a 3-year starter at Air Force, a guy's named Sean Carney. And then the other guy won a Heisman Trophy at Ohio State. So quarterback never
Man,
really
I didn't realize you didn't play safety till late in your career like that.
I played, and I quit. I actually quit football going into my junior year, and it broke my heart, but we were broke. We had no money, I needed to find a way to go to school for free. Listen, school was not my thing. I wasn't going to get an academic scholarship. That's for sure.
Your story reminds me, Bolton knows him. That's why I'm bringing it up. Max Riley.
Oh,
So
yeah.
remember Max? So Max Riley played offense for Bolton. He was like one of your best receivers, and he got hurt.
He was.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a big, but to be honest with you, that's a big reason why I was such a big fan of Max, because here's this kid. I don't think he realized all his potential. I think we were the first ones to really try to pump it into him on defense. Like, He's a
Mhm.
kid that I think if he had really good coaching on defense for a couple years, he should be
Yeah.
playing Division I college football. So,
I'll never forget that first game that year, rookie. They threw a screen and he comes out of the post
oh yeah,
and
from like 20
obliterates the
yards.
guy on the sideline. I looked at you and you looked at me and I was like, this kid
This
is
is
going to
it.
be pretty good. Like,
This is it.
but I remember watching film Bolton when you were coaching there. Man, he was just so athletic at receiver. Like,
Yeah, I remember watching when I got the job. He was in 8th grade. He was a rising freshman, and I saw him catch a slant and stride from Tyler, and he scored from like 30. I think it was against PD's like JV team or something. I was like, that guy's going to be our Y. And he came in. He was our Y. He led our team in receiving yards and touchdowns that year as a freshman, and so that's why I had him at receiver. Then he gets hurt, and then he kind of slowly made his way back into the lineup. But we had another guy that came along too. And so we probably should have put him at defense a little bit earlier. But yeah, I'm glad y'all did. I'm glad y'all did because I think man, what a stud kid, 6'1", probably 180 pounds, just built like what a good cat, what a good kid.
Yeah,
he
great kid.
had 3 picks one game in the post.
Yeah, I mean,
it was
we
wild.
had, and the way we had the defense set up, it was like we had basically 2 6'4" out there, down safeties,
Heck yeah.
with our star and our strong safety, and then we just had Max rolling around in the middle, and he was just running around picking it. The ball went up in the air, it was his, so it was
When
a
you
lot
look,
of fun.
I remember looking out there, like even when I was there, you had, obviously Mason was out there at star, and so you got like 6'3", then you got Max like 6'1". I mean, there's a bunch of stilts out there.
Yeah,
And Mason had, I think, 3 or 4 pick sixes my last year there, so he's done a good job too. But
yeah,
but
no.
were you the prototypical, like, I mean, obviously I don't really know your size and weight, but we're coming out of high school, were you like I'm the 5-star guy, or were you kind of I'm
Oh God,
I'm a
no,
really
man!
physical
Listen,
guy that had to grind and make your way on the
dude,
roster? Tell us a little about that.
listen. I always joke. I mean, I'm 5'10". I legit 5'10". NFL measured 5'10". Not that girls make fun of you 5'10".
Hey man, you're 6'1" in high school players.
No doubt,
High
man.
school players, you're 6'1".
That's
If you're
right. That's
5'10".
right. I always joke, and I don't think I really realized it until I got a little older, but I was a guy that was fighting more than just height, weight, speed. I mean, there was coming a time we had to like create tapes, highlight tapes, actual tapes that you put in VCRs and then mail it out. And I love my brother Yoshi to death, man. He did all those things, man. He took so much time creating my highlight tapes. But yeah, man, I mean, back then you're like, you get your roster and you see Haruki Nakamura 5'10", and you're like, no way, there ain't no way. So, the funny thing is you start putting in the tape, and all of a sudden they're like, what? Yeah, what is this? And it wasn't just, back then you were allowed to crack block on offense, and not only was I a great receiver, I mean, I was freaking all about blocking. So
Do you think judo gave you a lot of confidence in that kind of contact and that physicality? I mean, that
no, because
martial
judo.
art or no?
So where judo helped me the most was the individual competitiveness.
Hmm.
There's an individual accountability that's so important. And I always talk about football as a moving jig. Dustin's heard me give this spiel, but a moving jigsaw puzzle, right? Like, so all these pieces, they're all really important. There's 11 pieces on the field, right? And some need to be certain shapes and sizes. Some you can plug and play. But if you don't have that one piece, I mean, the picture's never going to be complete. Doesn't matter how much of a mastermind a coach is. Doesn't matter how great 10 other guys are. If you don't have, and that doesn't necessarily mean that piece needs to be skilled. That piece needs to be bought in. So, that was something I firmly believed in. And I was raised that way through, my youth years. When I got to high school, it was never about representing yourself. Like when I played at St. Ed's, it was always about representing St. Edward High School, representing the Nakamura family name. So judo for me made me understood that I'm representing my last name. And when I got to St. Ed's, the way that culture was set, I wasn't playing for me. I was playing for St. Edward High School. My responsibility was to bring that place further along, than it was. And that's not, I'm saying me, but I'm just saying that was everyone's responsibility. And as a player, I would be more ashamed if I didn't do everything I could to help my team than anything else. Like I didn't care how
Yeah.
much success I had. My success was, did I do everything I possibly could to take this place as far as we can?
Imagine if everybody still had that outlook as a player
It's
these
sad, man.
day and
And to
times.
be honest, but I'm gonna you, Dustin,
Dude.
dude. I've got to. I'm gonna say it, and I hope parents are listening to this. Starts with parenting. It really does.
There you go.
You know, I have no problem saying it. I don't. I mean, Dustin has seen me around my kids.
His son, just so everybody knows, his son's currently in 6th grade and probably tougher than a lot of high school kids I know. That dude, and I don't know if he was supposed to do this, but every single day when we were out there, he was out there in a helmet and cleats, and that kid was going through everything. I remember there was a couple times last summer we're 7-on-7 with high school teams, and I look out there and his 6th grade son is in the post. I'm like, oh boy. But man, nah, man, I didn't mean to cut you off. But,
no, you're
go ahead.
but the thing is, it's like you're. I mean, it's. I wouldn't put my son in a situation I didn't think he would be able to handle. Now, yes, he's a 6th grade, but my whole point with the parenting comment is that you do have to draw a line. Like parenting has changed. Kids haven't changed. I don't want to hear. Yeah, I'm a firm believer. I think the way people have parented, like I understand you don't want to hurt your kids' feelings, all that stuff, but there's got to if you want to have successful kids, you better challenge your kids. You better hold them accountable. You better push them out of their comfort zones. You got to do all these things, because then you get in these when you get older and these kids are in high school and you think they're able to compete, and then you're having a conversation with the coach. You're not understanding why your son or daughter or whatever it is isn't performing or isn't playing, or it's plain and simple attitude, accountability, like selfishness. Like that's and kids are allowed to be selfish. That's all right. The kids are or naturally selfish, but it's so important that parents understand that if you want your kids to perform on a sporting field in the classroom, it starts at home. I don't care. I don't. And obviously, some people come from broken homes and all this. And I'm not trying to say everyone falls in the same box, but if you are a parent of a child that has ability, you got to start that at home. It can't start all of a sudden at a coach's expense.
It seems like it gets harder each year because we've talked about this before on the podcast, but like our coaching values, the values that we have, the reasons we coach, it's to instill the values that we want in our players, toughness, grit, integrity, character, work ethic, all those things, they seem like they're not necessarily aligned with current parenting styles.
Not.
And I don't want to we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of why, but I think some of it's the recruiting piece, right? If I can give my kid every opportunity, whether that be starting or being at this program or starting at this position and getting these amount of reps and this type of film, that's going to elevate him to or her to be at that highest level. I get that. But what we're missing a little bit is what you're talking about, intentionally not trying to inflate their skill set by putting them in the best position possible.
Yeah.
You want to have them challenged. You don't want to have to put it on them, but you don't necessarily want to take them out of that because you're going to miss those learning lessons of toughness. And I'm a parent, and I think about that all the time. It's like man, I want to make sure that my daughter has everything or my son has everything, but like this is a really good teaching moment. Let them fight through it. And that's
kid.
hard.
I got a perfect example. There's a kid at NC State right now that went to Christ school that I was training. And it was a group of kids. I was just helping out. And as Dustin knows, man, I'm big. If I can help kids, I help kids. This kid's a 6'1" corner, 6'2" corner, really quick feet, state hurdle champion. And there were some times, and these workouts I put him through, they would be really difficult. They'd be hard. They'd be challenging. Kids were throwing up during some of them. But this every once in a while, this kid would kind of just take it off. The one thing I explained to him, and again, I didn't necessarily know his family situation, but I knew he was a great athlete. I knew he had a ton of potential. But the one thing I hammered home to him, I go, every time someone like you thinks they can take a play off, who's got every gift in the world, let someone like me, a 5'10", overachieving, hungry killer, a chance to get their foot in the door. And that's the thing that parents need to understand. Natural ability is natural ability. That's genetics. That's something, I mean, no one can teach that, right? But the one thing that parents need to emphasize to their kids is that not even just telling them, but holding them accountable to make sure if this is what they're saying they want to do, they need to look themselves in the mirror and actually see and ask themselves and answer the questions. Are you actually doing everything it takes? Because if you're the most talented in the world, no one comes close to you. If you're a kid that really, really wants to do something, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I've got to do 10 times more than I'm probably capable of enduring. But that comes from parenting, and that's not berating your kids. That's not saying, hey, you suck today. It's, did you do what you were supposed to do to achieve the goals that you're saying that you want to achieve? That is really important. That can't happen with coaches. It's got to come from home first.
And I remember, man, every day after school, Hayden would come upstairs and he'd hang out because my office was right in the press box. He'd hang out in the press box and he'd come in and I'd hear him doing his homework. And when Haruki'd walk in, the first thing, hey, man, did you get your work done? Number one thing, like, are you going to have the time to go hang out and have fun at practice and get better? Or are you going to have to still sit up here and do your homework? And they have this system. So I've seen that firsthand. I think it's this good part. One day we're going to do a show on recruiting. But like what I always tell kids about recruiting is number one is grades. And two, and this is the one that gets looked over, not saying that college coaches don't care about your work ethic or your character, but the number two thing, do you have the ability to play at the level you want to play, the school you want to play? So this is a good, Rookie, tell us a little bit about your time. You left high school, you had the opportunity to go to a great university like Cincy. Tell us a little bit about your time at Cincy and kind of when maybe did it click? Did you think, man, I have a shot to go to the next level after college?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know exactly when that happened. I remember getting a bunch of MAC offers. A bunch of the Big Ten schools were wanting me as a preferred walk-on. That financially was not going to work. And then it just so happened that one of the coaches, wide receiver coaches at one of the MAC schools, ended up taking a job at Cincinnati. He ghosted me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm losing this one." He calls me a couple weeks later, and he's at the University of Cincinnati, part of Mark D'Antonio's coaching staff. And Coach D'Antonio had just recently, either that year or the year before, won the national championship as defense coordinator at Ohio State. And he brings him up to St. Ed's, and we pop in my tape, and he's looking at the tape. He's looking at me. He's looking at the tape, looking at me. And he's trying to put it together. He's like, how the hell is this kid playing so much bigger than what I see in front of me? And that's the one thing that was really unique about the state of Ohio. It's like, it's not just world beaters in Ohio. Like, there are so many great football players. It's maybe a little too small, maybe a little too slow, just great football. And I just was a really good football player. And I was too small for Big Ten schools, whatever, all that other stuff. But you put me on the field with anybody, you're gonna see me flash across the screen. You're gonna see me make impact on the ball. Like, so when I get to the University of Cincinnati, I obviously get to play for Mark D'Antonio, who coached under Saban at Michigan State. Like, he basically was a young Nick Saban. That's exactly what he was. So you can imagine how hardcore those practices were for him. We were his experiment. We were his first head coaching gig. Then another luxury was Pat Narduzzi was my defensive coordinator, right? He's the head coach of Pitt. My position coach was Harlan Barnett. He's the DB coach at Northwestern right now. He was the interim head coach at Michigan State. He's a defensive coordinator at Florida State. He was an 8-year NFL veteran, played for Saban, and so when just to say how lucky I am. I was so lucky to have the college coaches that I had. That was one of the hardest experiences in my life as a football player, as a person, um, as just everything. It was so different than anything. And I came from a great program, great high school program, trained with my brother who was an Olympic, Olympic trial qualifier wrestler. Like I know how to train, but coming in as an 18-year-old kid with, at that time, I think we had that senior class that my freshman year, I think we had like 8 or 9 guys go to the NFL. Um, some of these dudes were coming out of junior college. I mean, these were grown men from all over the country. Most of them, a couple of them were, I always joke, they're from down in Louisiana. So like there was a language barrier on top of it, but it was an unbelievable experience. But when it came down to tying your shoes up, putting your freaking helmet on, strapping your shoulders up, you just step on the field and you just go get it, and that was the one thing as a true freshman. uh Went into training camp, didn't have any summer training, went into training camp, passed the conditioning test, go into fall camp, and the one thing I just told myself, just go knock everyone's head off. That was it. That was the one thing, that was the bare minimum I could do. I knew I was smart enough to figure out the playbook. um and coming out as an 18-year-old kid on a team that had some unbelievable talent, I can't tell you how many Super Bowl winners we had on that team. I was slated to start as a true freshman against Ohio State, and I ended up getting sick. We came back from training camp. I ended up spending a week in the hospital. I had a really bad throat infection, and I missed this opportunity. But right there and then, with being on the field with a Trent Cole, who's in Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame. Brent Selleck was out there as a tight end. We had Andre Frazier, who's a Super Bowl champ with Pittsburgh. Tywan Hagler was a Super Bowl champ with Indianapolis. Mike Wright was a Super Bowl champion with New England Patriots. Like dudes, like as a freshman coming out, it made it real simple for me. I just need to continue to do what I firmly believe in. It's just give everything that I am for my team, and it'll all work out. And my freshman year was rough. I mean, again, a kid, a boy going against grown men, and but it did teach me everything I needed to know going into that off-season training. And I trained like an absolute madman going into my sophomore year. That winter conditioning, if we were running laps, my goal was to lap the entire defense. If we were running sprints, my goal was to be first. And not only be first, was get back to the line first, get in front of the lines first, do everything first, first, first. And the way I saw it was, and for me, yeah, sure, I was being graded for every single one of those workouts. But in my mind, I was saying to myself, I have to give it all. I have to give it all. And what I started noticing was that there was a couple my other classmates that came in with me. They started doing the same thing. And when we started realizing that we don't need to be afraid of the upperclassmen, like we're here with them. We're doing the same exact. Once that happened, you basically set your own path. So, I was fortunate enough to play I ended up being a 3-year starter at Cincinnati. I played for Coach D'Antonio and Doozy and all those guys for those first 3 years. And then Brian Kelly, those guys left, but it broke my heart because I had given those guys everything that I possibly could. All of us did. And then Brian Kelly comes in, and there's a line, right? His secret weapon was his strength coach. His name was Paul Longo. And he's the one that was responsible for turning, Jason Kelsey into a center, Travis Kelsey into a tight end. He morphed a lot of guys. But we did, the first they come in, he coaches the bowl game. We get into winter conditioning, and they told us, like, we're going to challenge you. We're going to push you. We're like, all right, let's go. We're ready. They start putting us through these workouts, and we're kind of like, what's going on? Like, this is easy. And it was so funny because I remember Brian Kelly and Paul Longo just flat out saying, you guys are freaking barbaric. He's like, we don't need to make you tougher. He's like, we got to just teach you how to win. And then that year, we ended up having the first 10-win season in 50 years. and then they just took off. So again, fortunate. I am one of the luckiest football players, athletes. It just, there's a book, Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Outliers. I'm a big fan of that book, but I'm a firm believer. Like, there are certain people who are born at certain times that fall on certain paths, and if you just do everything you're capable of doing to be prepared for those opportunities aren't always given. But if you're preparing for them, and they show up, you just take advantage of them.
It seems like you know that there is benefit to challenging yourself and chasing what's hard. I think that's what kind of flies in the face of our society today too a lot. And probably with us, everybody kind of goes through that at some point. But I love that you're talking about how you're chasing the hard things and not just embracing them, but trying to freaking beat the crap out of whatever they're going to throw at you. And so I'm really interested in how, I think that probably gives you a lot of confidence. These guys are coming and saying, "Man, you're a freaking savage, man. You're barbaric." And then how does that kind of catapult you into, an NFL career? Because you're probably thinking, "Man, I was kind of undersized. I played a few different positions. Didn't want to play in high school. Go through college, kind of dominated there. Is this, how's the NFL kind of worked out, and how did that kind of work out for you?"
I ended up being my senior year, ended up being unanimous first team all Big East player. And that was when the Big East was freaking loaded. Like, West Virginia had Pat White, Steve Slayton, all those dudes. Louisville had like Brian Brom, Harry Douglas. Oh my gosh, can't think of the at Rutgers. Rutgers had Ray Wright. That Rutgers had their loaded team. South Florida, they were loaded. They had a bunch of first round picks. They had like Jason Pierre-Paul on that team. Like, dude, it was crazy. But you know, there's a certain point in time, like, you really, like, I don't believe in necessarily reflecting every second of the day. I'm a big believer of, you put your nose down and you may look up 5 years down the road, and if you live right, you do right, and you take a peek every once in a while, you should be in a good place. And so, yeah, I give a lot, to be honest with you, I give a lot of credit to my mom, because I can't, and I told Dustin this, like, mom, again, go back to my mom. She showed me how to endure. She taught me how to survive. She taught me, more importantly, how to be tough. She never cried in front of us. She never complained in front of us. She never made excuses in front of us. But, as you grow up, you start realizing certain things. Like, your mom tells you, hey, don't answer the phone, right? Just let it ring. Probably a bill collector, right? Like, you start realizing she's just doing everything possible. She's just figuring it out, figuring it out, figuring it out. And, it's, I remember thinking as a kid, like, why the hell is God or this world putting this pressure on my mom? And I firmly believe it was to teach us, no matter how dire the situation, if you believe everything's going to be okay, if you believe that all you need to do is have an opportunity and be prepared for it, or you believe that if I do everything I could do for my kids, that they're going to be better off than what they will be if I don't, everything's going to be all right. But you got to put your nose down and grind. And so that's how my career worked out. And then when I get drafted I take a couple of these pre-draft visits to the NFL. Baltimore was one of them. I met with New England a bunch. I met with quite a few teams, because, again, I was a great football player, and I was an overachiever. And I always say that the NFL is actually made up more of overachievers than there are superstars. It's just, when you're an overachiever, more often than not, you did a lot more of the tough things correct than other people. It's not necessarily just talent. It's just, you figured a lot of things out. You figured out how to be disciplined. You're probably going to be a better pro early on, than some guy who has more talent. It's just the way it worked out. But I go on my pre-draft visit, and again, Harbaugh's rookie head coach, great head coach. My defensive coordinator is Rex Ryan, right? My position coach was Mark Carrier. Safeties coach was Mark Carrier, 8-year NFL veteran. the defensive back coach was Chuck Pagano, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Like, dude, like it just,
That's crazy.
yeah, it's just, and lucky, and you know, Greg Madison, Dean Pease. Like, I just was so lucky to have all these coaches in the NFL. And so, anyways, to get drafted to Baltimore as a defensive player was like, dude, I bawled my eyes out, man. And here's the funny thing is the way that worked out was a lot of the Ravens organization were still the old Cleveland Browns organization. So Art Modell was still around. Steve Bisciotti was in transition of taking over majority ownership, but he kept everybody there. That's, you know, Ozzie Newsome and all those guys there. And the guy that was the president of public relations for the Ravens was actually a St. Edward High School alumni. So listen to this. So I'm talking to Ozzy. And he's just saying, he's like, how you feeling, man? I'm like, it was a rough day. It was day 3. I thought I was actually probably going to get drafted a little earlier, which everyone is hopeful and optimistic on that. But, 6 rounds coming by, and, some of the teams that I thought would draft me, Baltimore is one of them. All of a sudden they call me, and Ozzy's like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, just waiting. And he's like, well, listen, you're not going to wait much longer. But he's like, I got someone to put on the phone for you. And that guy's name's Kevin Byrne. And he goes, hey, Haruki, how you going? How you doing? I'm like, hey, I'm good. He goes, from one St. Edward Eagle to another. Welcome to the Baltimore Ravens. Dude, I freaking
Awesome,
cried.
man.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
That's awesome.
So it's special, man. Again, I'm so lucky, so grateful. And then all of a sudden you get to mini camp, like the first you get to OTAs, and you walk in the locker room. Not all the veterans are there, right? But you're walking in the locker room, you're like, oh wow, that's Ray Lewis's locker. Oh wow, that's Terrell's. Oh, that's Ed Reed.
Ed
You
Reed.
shitting me, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm like, wait. I'm like Chris McAllister, Samari Roll, Corey. All these dudes, and then all of a sudden, then you start seeing the depth. You're like, oh man, there's Haloti Nine, Jared Johnson, and like you just see like the names and names and names and names. And that's just on defense. And I just remember that first mini camp. And I remember being out on the field, being like, holy, like, this is it. Like, as a defensive player, you're telling me I'm like, and as a rookie, if you can grasp the playbook, it was always about, they knew you were a good football player. They knew you were tough. If they drafted you as a defensive player, they knew those things. It was about how quickly can you grasp the playbook. And fortunately, I was pretty decent at that. Terminology was the hardest piece, but dude, training camp, OTAs, get to fall camp, and you're freaking out there, lined up, and you're communicating with Ray Lewis as a rookie, communicate with Ed Reed as a rookie. You're like,
Dude, that's wild,
Man,
man.
this is why.
that's awesome.
And the thing is, I think I ended up having, and this is not an exaggeration, I think I ended up having like 6 interceptions in like the first week of training camp. Like
Wow.
same thing I did
Yeah.
in college. I
Mhm.
said, screw it. I'm just gonna freaking throw it. I'm just gonna get everything that I got. I mean, I felt like I just about killed myself out of that training camp. But man, it just I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. It was an unbelievable experience.
That's awesome, man. And obviously through this episode, we're finding out how important training is to you. And I think this is a great time to say at Coach Speak, we've seen firsthand how important organized training is for athletes. That's why we trust Team Builder, the platform that takes the guesswork out of strength and conditioning. Whether you're a high school squad or a full athletic program, Team Builder gives you the tools to track, program, and optimize training in real time. Don't just train smarter. Click the link in our show notes for a free 30-day trial with Team Builder using the promo code CoachSpeak.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to hear about how those experiences, Coach. Like, man, you got me amped up, man. I'm ready to get out there, and I wish you were
Every
my
Sunday,
teammate.
Sunday, I was ready to go play on
Like, I want to
Sunday.
go play again and play the way that you played. And I think that's something that, as a coach, I want to try to instill in my players. And I know you've done that too as a coach now. So NFL career, I don't want to go beyond that, but what was the biggest difference? And we're going to get to how you transition in a minute, but what was the biggest difference that you saw, like that college, now dominating in college, now got this NFL career? What's the biggest difference?
Pro. I mean, like, truly being a pro, there's no more holding your hand. I mean, like, when the funny thing is college is hard. College is hard because you've got all the training, you've got all the practices, you got all the meetings, and then you got to go to school, right? But you have someone who sets your schedule, right? Like, when you get to the NFL, other than in season where everything is scheduled, once off season hits, yeah, sure, maybe you have to show up to some OTAs. It's all on you. It's all on you being a pro. It's all on you. When you leave the facility during season, it's all on you to watch film, right? And that's where, I like you'll see like the videos of like freaking Luke Kuechly watching like those things are so important, and that's what separates average players from good players from great players. Um, it's it's all about being a pro, man. And we could talk a billion different ways, from individual, responsibilities from your position to, responsibilities to teammates, holding each other accountable. Like, it's those dudes are paying you to be pros. Like, there's no other way to put it. You're not paying you to babysit you. Um, so
How was how was playing with Luke Kuechly? You tell us a little bit about Luke.
yeah. So I'll go to like, so when I first get to Baltimore, Rex Ryan was a huge believer of unit meetings together, like watching practices together. And, I was used to, like, you do a little bit of unit meeting, go over game plan stuff, break in, watch film with your position groups in college. And, we get to Baltimore. Rex is like, no, we're all meeting together. You have all the coaches in the same room. You have all the players in the same room. And Rex is going, we'll go through, whether it's inside run, 7-on-7 team, all these things. And we're going through it together. And there are times where, like, Rex wouldn't even say a word. He's just going through plays. And all of a sudden you would hear like Ray go, "Hey, Haloti, you see where you went here? Blah, 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 blah. Like, look, you do that. I see this and this and this and this." And you're like, whoa, and all of a sudden you hear, hey, here, Ed and Ray, like, when you get to 7-on-7, like, hey, you see how you're dropping here, I'm based on that. I'm going to see this and this and this. And, like, you start hearing the IQ communication, like the high IQ, you start thinking less about your position, and it goes back to that moving jigsaw puzzle piece, right? Like, it's bare minimum as a football player. You need to know your assignment, right? Alignment, assignment, and then there's execution. That's bare minimum for a football player. The good football players are really good at alignment, really good at assignment, and really good at executing. Those are good football players. The elite football players are the ones that are great at alignment, great at assignment, great at execution, but pre-snap communication, knowing not just your responsibility, but how your responsibility affects every single person. If you think about a safety, you got to communicate with linebackers, you got to communicate with stars and nickels, you got to communicate with corners, you got to communicate with defensive ends. Sometimes there's all of these different things. Like, if a safety's blitzing and you're coming off the edge, and the blitz is coming off the edge, but you need to run a different stunt with the end. You got to be able to tell the end, like, hey, go under, I'm just going to wrap around you, or hey, go up, I'm coming under. Like, there's so many layers to being an elite player that's so far beyond just being an athlete. So I got to play with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Those are two of those dudes. I say this all the time. If you take those guys out of football for 5, 6, 7 years and you put them back in, as long as they know what coaching tree the coordinators come from, they'll tell you the entire offense. That's how good those guys were.
Wow.
Luke Kuechly. So I forgot how old Ray was. It was So it was, yeah, my last year in Baltimore was the year before Ray retired, the year they won the Super Bowl. We were in the AFC Championship that year. So Ray was in, let's just say, his 100th year of playing, right? So he had seen everything in football. He had executed everything in football. He is in like the 40-40-20 club and all that stuff. And, I signed with Carolina, and Luke is a rookie, right? And he's a Cincinnati kid. He went to St. Xavier in Cincinnati. And he would come to some of the Cincinnati games back then. I didn't know him then, but he'd be around. But he comes in as a rookie and he's picking the playbook up like this. And then all of a sudden he's picking up terminology like this. And then all of a sudden it's just like you could see how fast he was putting everything together. And by the end of that first year, from an IQ standpoint, I had just left Ray Lewis, and this felt like Luke was already almost there. Like it was just
Wow.
that's how quick he was able to really, again, great football player. He alignment, assignment, responsibility, knew all, or execution, could do all those great. What made him elite was all those other things. And
And how does coaching play a role into that? Like, have you seen where coaches are a little bit better of packaging those things, or is it just kind of like in the NFL, man, they're giving the whole stuff no matter what it is, and you got to kind of figure it out, or is there
so there's certain,
differences there?
so there's, I mean, there's a couple of different philosophies. So, you know, I just actually heard my daughter's basketball coach jump on them about, not picking up the plays and all this stuff, because they're right now, her travel basketball team is a group of really, really smart girls. They are very smart girls. I know they're smart girls. But he's loading them down with, like, a bunch of plays in a short period of time, and he's getting on them for, one of the worst things you can do with a smart football player or a smart athlete is give them too much information. Sometimes,
Overanalyze.
yeah, sometimes you need to give them 2 or 3 plays and then tell them why. That's more important. If you're putting in all these different plays, it's kind of tooting your own horn as a coach, right? The teaching kids the why that you're running certain plays, the why, because all of a sudden the kids, if you're a wide receiver, right? Let's say you're running, you got, trips to one side and you're just running some sort of flood concept, right? One kid is going to think, all right, I'm probably just going to run a go route. The next guy's thinking, all right, I'm going to run a sit. The other guy's going to run the corner. And if kids are thinking about it that way, like, they're not understanding football. If they're being taught why the play is being called, now it becomes, oh, so if the corner sinks here, oh, I might get this ball. Or if this guy pulls this guy, or if I do my responsibility. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we're running this concept because of this coverage. This coverage's weakness is this. If you could teach kids one play at a time just like that, their IQ as a football player goes up, because now it's chess, right? It's not, hey, I'm going to call this play and hope for this result. I'm calling this play for this purpose. And these kids got to understand why. So, sometimes you get kids who think like, oh, I'm not getting the ball in this play. What usually happens? They jog off the line, right? So it's more about making sure kids understand why in football, not a bunch of plays. It's not again, that's the coach's responsibility. And, sure, knowing your team's important. Can you give them a few extra plays? Great. But loading them down with a bunch, if you have a bunch of smart kids, it doesn't matter. You end up slowing them down because they're thinking too much.
Yeah, just teaching that conceptual football. So
Yep.
because like you're saying, if you slow it down, then you can build off of what you're teaching at a time, and
Peyton
and
Manning,
it resonates with them more.
dude, Peyton Manning made an absolute freaking killing on basically like 2 concepts. And the reason he did it was because he knew, like if there was trips on this side, 1 and 3 would come up and run, slants, ins, whatever you want to call it. Number 2 would run up and run a corner. And he knew they would run that almost every other play sometimes. And he would do that because he knew exactly, based on the coverage, exactly who was open. Right? Pre-snap reads, all these things, he's going through all the pre-snap cadence and all that stuff. Dude, if you look at most of Dallas Clark's and like Marvin Harrison's touchdowns, it's off of like the same exact play. And it was strictly because this is my bread and butter play.
Yep.
Based on this coverage, I know this person's open. If it's this coverage, this person's open. Someone's always open. It's just, again, you don't load it down with a bunch of plays. You just you teach them the why.
Yeah, and you can eliminate the variables with the less stuff you have, right? Like if you can execute the a little bit, and you can have variations. I mean, man, it could be that speaks volumes to us too, because you think about NFL and it's like, man, they got these big huge playbooks, but and what you're saying is not necessarily about how much you have, how much volume you have. It's how deep you can get into it.
Rex Ryan's famous quote. He, if you go and look at his first press conference with the New York Jets, when he takes the job there, he's like, a lot of people talk about the KISS philosophy, the keep it simple, stupid. He firmly believed in that, but I like the kill philosophy. I like to keep it likable and learnable. And
okay, I like that.
But the point was, like, in Baltimore, like, everyone thought we had all these exotic blitzes and all this stuff. What we would do is we would run the same exact blitzes out of 4 different personnels. Like, I'm not exaggerating that. Like, there was times, like, I played the position that I played in Baltimore, like, I was designated a safety, but the position I played there were times I was a safety, times I was the nickel, there was times I was a linebacker, there was times I was a defensive end, there was times I was lining up in the freaking A gap. Like, dude, like, it was. But the thing was, the play calls, I needed to know, based on wherever I was, I needed to know what my responsibility was, but the play would actually be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about loading down kids with plays. It's teaching them how to execute those things from simplicity matter.
And the more I look and I'm on the defense side of the ball, but the more I look and build my package and look at different things, man, like I just look at what can we do cheap that's the same, but it just looks different, and like whether you're a 2-high team or you're a 1-high team, like if you run cover 3, you can get a 4-man rush and play cover 3 about 9 different ways. And and it's really not that difficult. And to your point, if you're coaching a team that you have multiple different personnels, well, now we can take rookie and put him at 3 different positions, and we're going to run the same coverage. We're just going to change who the 4th rusher is and that. And then, lately I learned about, it's called maze. It's what the Steelers used to run. So it's man alignment, but zone execution. So they make it look like you're going to run 1-high man coverage, and it just turns into cover 2 at the snap. You know what I'm saying? So what I've learned is find what you love, find your base stuff, and then find a couple ways you can mix it up to make it look completely different to a quarterback.
Well, that's like, what we did last year. That one of the reasons I loved it is I'm a big quarters guy. I believe in cover 4. I believe in quarter, half. I firmly believe in those coverages. And a big part of it is you can take those coverages, you can actually take those safeties, and you put 9 in the box pretty quickly. So even though you're showing 2 shell, you can get those guys to the line of scrimmage if you have the front 7 doing things properly. There's a bunch of different ways you can skin a cat, man. But when you teach it, got to teach the why, and you have to teach them.
It's the concept. And the same thing offensively. Like, you could be a gap or zone team, but you could do it out of multiple different personnel sets. Like, if you're a gap team, you want to run gap, you want to run, counter and power, and you're 10 personnel. Well, you can go GT counter, you can go power read. You don't necessarily have to have a tight end in there and kick the end all the time. So,
and if you have a running back, if you got a running back that can make everybody right, you look like a genius.
Well, there you go.
That's a huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge.
I'll never forget, man. So we our first year at Cannon rookie, I think game 1, 2, and 3, we saw a bunch of 1 back, little bit of H back, and then we played Christian game 4, and they were nothing but H back pro. And,
Yep.
we got pretty beat down, personnel was not matched up well. And we're sitting in the office afterwards or something, and Rookie looks at me and says, "So I guess we better get a pro and H-back plan together because that's what everybody's getting ready to run."
I told him,
and
I
the
said,
rest
it
of
was,
the season, that's all it was.
I think it actually was, I think it was Country Day first. It was something like that. No, it was, you're right. I think it was Chris. But after they did that, every single, they changed their whole offense. And I told Dustin, I said, I'm just gonna let you know right now, this is what everyone's gonna do from this point on. And every single team we played for the rest of the season, they didn't bring out 3 wide receivers. They just went in pro,
Yep.
double tight. They were just like, we're just gonna run it right down here. That's just
We played Christ School. They went 1 for 9 throwing the ball
yeah.
and still throttled us in two-back H-back.
Before up to that point, they were throwing the ball like 20-25 times a game. So
That's how it goes, man.
yeah, Dustin said it best. He said sometimes when it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmy's and Joe's. I about died. I said, ooh, ain't that the truth?
Personnel it's a big deal. I mean, I think if you can exploit the personnel, I mean, I like 2 tight ends a lot. I mean, I think you can,
Yeah.
you got these mismatches on the outside, especially if you don't have great cover guys.
Tom Brady, he was the king at that, right? When he had, Hernandez and Gronk and all those guys, and the way they were able to use those slot receivers. I mean, they would cut those down to basically, tight number 2s and run
10
boots and
gaps to
also.
defend.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Good deal. Well, Coach, yeah, I really want to kind of get into why you wanted to get into coaching after the NFL. You had your great career, and now you're out of it. You talked about staying around the game. What made you transition to coaching?
So I'll be honest with you. When I got hurt and retired, I hated football. I despised football. And even more importantly, I think I was more disappointed in myself that I allowed myself to get to the kind of point that I was at. When I got hurt, man, I was banged up. It was really bad. I just didn't want anything to do with football. I didn't want my kids around football. I was a miserable human being. And the more, I focused on my health, mental health, getting all that stuff back, started realizing like, my son's kind of got these little personality traits that's got a little bit aggressive, little, run around, he's boy, being a boy. And there was this one summer camp up in Asheville at AC Reynolds, and great. They got a great. Shane does a great job up there. But he's just running around, and the high school kids. I give the high school kids a lot of credit too up there. Great, they did a really good job with the young campers. But he's just running around tackling the bags and doing the drills and running around with the football. Hey, and again, that was my first experience with football since I retired. Like I was focused on my health, and man, it was just like a light went off in my head, and I was just like, that's why I played football. That was it. To be out there with my friends, and so two or three of his little best friends were saying like, "Hey, we're gonna play football this year," and I'm like, there's no way. But they're like, Hayden was like, "Dad, I want to play," and I was like, so I signed him up. I had no desire to coach. I just was going to take a step back. Um, and I'm watching like the first practice, and Hayden's little friends, comes up to me and goes, so he goes, you help out with baseball, you help out with basketball. He goes, the sport that you were a pro in and very successful, you're just going to sit up here with me? and because it was eating me alive, because there's dads now, great dads, they're great people, but they're not necessarily teaching the things that I know, right? It's kind of start burning me up a little bit. So I go down there, and I talked to the director of the program. They're affiliated with AC Reynolds. I talked to the director of the program. I'm like, hey, if it's okay, I'd like to help. Didn't tell it. Nobody other than a few people knew who I was. I didn't really go around telling everybody who I was. Or what I did. And he's like, sure. He's like, yeah. He's like, what's your football experience? I was like, I played high school, played college, played a little bit in the NFL. He's like, oh, really? Yeah. We definitely would love that. So then I go and I introduce myself to the head coach, Great guy. I'm close with him, really close friends with him now. And I go, hey, Coach Noah, my name's Haruki Nakamura. Nice to meet you. I go, my son's Hayden, and I was just wondering. It's like, hey, look, I'd love to help you out any way I can, and whatever you need. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll see what we can do. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Said fine, walked away. So I'm walking away, and it hit me. I was talking to Hayden, and I kind of peek over my shoulder, and the director goes up to the head coach, and the head coach just start going like, "Wait, what? He's what?" And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Hey, hey, hey, you can coach, you can coach." I'm sorry, like, but
Uh,
I'm not doing it for me, like that's the thing. I wasn't doing it for me. It was just to do it because I saw my son loving a sport that I was so passionate about, and I have to say that the kids that he was teammates with were a great group of kids, great group of parents. Um, and those are things that I believe in. Like I think if it was kind of any other circumstance, who knows? I don't think I wouldn't have been part of it. Um, but just that group, that community, that AC Reynolds community, man, they were phenomenal. And I think if you take, I'd be dead honest with you, in the next 4 to 5 years, that group up there is going to be making a lot of noise. They have a lot of talent come up. Part of Hayden's little group, there's a ton of talent coming up. So, that was my jump into it. And then, getting the kids back to Charlotte was really important to me, and that's how I met Dustin. Um, so things have kind of organically happened, and a big piece of it is just, me wanting to volunteer my time. And it's not about me. It's just that I know that I can help kids. I know that I can teach things that in other ways they're not going to ever learn. I've had fun with it. We've had successes. We've had failures. All the throws that football takes you through. I think it's great. I think if you have the time and the ability to do it, I think it's a great way to give back to your community and make a difference in kids.
Yeah, man. And I remember, when I first actually came on with Bolton, he was like, hey, man, he hired me as the DC. He said, we got a chance to get Haruki Nakamura to coach the safeties for us. I said, really? And then Bolton, departs, I step in, and then the first time we meet's at that dinner. And, like there are a lot of great players who may not necessarily be great with relationship with kids or great at coaching. And when I met you, I was like, oh, dude, if they don't get these kids in this school and this guy that coaches on their staff, I'm going to be upset. And anyways, it all worked out. But one thing I will never forget is when I decided to resign, a lot of kids, when they found out I was leaving, they reached out to you. Hey, are you going anywhere? Because that's how much they enjoyed the relationship you have built with them. And man, that tells a lot to you. What would you say kind of the biggest difference is going like from player to coach and working with kids who, may be as good or have the more potential than you, but also kids who may not have that talent? What's the
So,
biggest transition for you?
so if you're a good player, the volume around you goes up, right? And what I mean by that is when a good player makes a mistake, it's actually very critical. So, uh, one of the things that helped me at a very young age was being able to listen and understand through the volume, because we all know in football, screaming and yelling is going to happen, right? Get chewed out is going to happen. Having the ability, and it's hard for a high school kid, but having the ability to compose yourself to listen through the volume is so important. Um, and at times, great players don't know how to do that, right? There are times they've been told how great they are their entire lives. All of a sudden, they're getting chewed out, and they don't know how to listen to the volume, right? The other side of it too, as a player, it this is the coaches that used to drive me nuts. If you like, I was a smart player. I knew my response. I knew when I screwed up. I knew when things didn't happen the way they're supposed to happen. the ones the coaches used to drive me nuts were the ones that used to come on. I'd come off the field and they'd start screaming, "You can't do that!" Yeah, no shit, right? Like, I know that, right? Like, you know, giving don't again goes back to the why, right? Like, hey, dude, like, look, this is you need to understand when you make this, like, you can't make this mistake because as a defensive back, probably a touchdown, big play at minimum. Not communicating with this person, that's your responsibility. Like, it's got to be more about why. It can't just be like, you're an idiot. Like, I don't believe in that.
Hey, cover somebody. Well, what do you think I'm trying to do?
Yeah,
Like,
like I
block
hate,
somebody.
yeah, block
and I'm
someone.
very
Like,
fortunate to I have not had very many of those coaches, but I have a few in my day where I'm like, yeah, no, get it. Like, so tell me something else. Like,
Yeah, tell me
give
how
me.
to fix it.
how can I
Tell me how
fix
to
it?
fix
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So that's really important.
Yeah. So, as a as a coach now, you've seen leadership at the highest level, right? And I know we're kind of talking about that now with like coaching style, but you know, I wish I would have had an opportunity to coach with you because I think I would have learned a lot. I'm sure Dustin would say the same thing. Like, you've seen the best leaders in our profession and really in sports in general. What what separates their leadership versus maybe some leadership that's not as good as theirs?
Preparation. I mean, that's all the coaches I played for were so ridiculously prepared. I mean, and it at times when you have smart teams, it's great, but then at times it's too much information. You hold it, like, so it's great. But the other thing is, I'm a big believer in like that stoic personality. I firmly believe composure is everything. And the reason I say that is, obviously the higher level you get up, the camera is always on the head coach, right? Players, I mean, think about what, what people say about players when they look like emotional roller coasters on the side, like, oh, this guy, he's immature, he's this and that. But a lot of that, if your head coach is stoic, there's a really good chance that the players are going to be that way as well. They're not going to flinch in the face of adversity, right? They're gonna they're gonna batten down the hatches, right? They're gonna dig in and they're gonna say, here we go, right? You get punched first, you strap yourself back up and you gotta get ready to go. So a lot of that, having players be able to look at your head coach and be able to say, all right, coach is a wavering, we got this, we're good, right? Like, that is, like, again, that's in my opinion, some at times, like, that's a bare minimum as a coach, because especially at the high school level, man, I don't believe in kids slamming helmets. I don't believe in them being freaking jerks on the sideline or terrible team. I don't believe it. I hate that stuff. But composure, like, when things are getting bad, it's not like, man, this is over, or God, I can't. But it's just, hey, let's just go. Let's gear back up. Let's go. That's so important.
And it starts with us, like what you're saying, like as the leader of the program. If we're over there slamming clipboards or, you know, doing the things that the kids they're going to do the same thing. If we're arguing with referees and screaming in their face and all that mess, like, then they're going to feel like they can do that too. I think it's the way that we handle ourselves because we should be a direct reflection of what we want our program to be. We talked about that in the previous episode too, with like, what do we want to be known for? Like, I love that stoicism, the fact that, kind of up or down. Tell me a little bit about, like, if you have a DB get burned, how do you approach that kid as he comes off the field? Tell me kind of your style.
I think the number one thing is, so when I mean, Dustin, he knows how I coach. I'm on the very other end of the football. Like, I hated.
I don't ever see him. Like, I'm
Yeah,
down there calling defense, and that dude, I'm like, where's Rookie at?
yeah,
He's like 40 yards that way on the behind the offense or something. It's
behind
awesome.
the defense, because that's the I hated being in the press, right? It's just a terrible view. I like try to be as close as I could in the sense of being able to see from behind, to try to get a jump on if something happens, try to, because I could see it immediately. But kid gets burned. Obviously, there's a really good chance I probably saw why. But the question is like, what were you doing? What were you saying? Why? Like, what put you in this position? And if the kid couldn't necessarily give you the answers of like why or what he was doing or what he was thinking, then kind of goes back to that alignment, assignment, execution thing, right? Like, and that sometimes falls on coaches, right? And that's why on game day, the volume from coaches is so much higher, because if you feel like you're doing everything right throughout the week, during practices, volume's really not that high, right? Sure, you're going to nip stuff in the butt and get, but game day, everything's on the line. So,
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing. It's just kind of going through the checklist of alignment, assignment, execution. You take false steps, you take your read steps. Did you do this? Did you do that? Were you deep enough in the post? Where do you, did you open and turn the right way? It's like there's so many different things. But for the most part, it goes back to kind of that checklist of alignment. Were you aligned right? Do you know your assignment? Like, if it's usually one of those three things. So
And they could probably tell you what they did wrong. I mean,
one
because
hundred percent.
and that's I coach quarterbacks, and it's the same thing. It's like I remember one time I made a big mistake, and I was like, man, did you not see the guy like sitting right there? And that was a total mistake on my part, because then that starts a whole conflict between our communication, and later on it was like I took your approach. It's like, hey man, what'd you see out there? I'm
Yeah.
asking you. You're out
Yeah.
there playing the game.
Yeah.
You're the
And
one with
break
all the pressure. You
it.
got you got to score the touchdowns.
Right. And break it and really simple, like from a quarterback. All right, this was the play call. They came, the coverage was this, right? You kind of know all this
Yeah.
information after the fact, right? So
Mhm.
being able to say, like, hey, if it's this coverage, your read has to be here, here, here. Now, instead of saying, like, why didn't you see this in this coverage?
Exactly.
Right? It's the same exact message, but different, right? And
Yeah.
so one can get through to teach. The other one is kind of like an attack on the kid, where they're at this age, they're going to emotionally be like shut down. So, you know,
It lowers that volume a little bit with the
right,
communication.
right.
They can kind of hear the message through all the noise. I
That
love that.
Mike Tomlin, he said it best. He's like, you know, you don't run, like, you run to coaching, right? And coaching is teaching. Coaching isn't the opportunity to berate a kid. Coaching is the opportunity to teach a kid.
Mhm.
And if you think about it that from that standpoint, you're more than likely going to be a pretty good coach, right? Again, not teaching isn't just loading down with plays. Teaching is the whys.
And I remember, after me and you met and we kind of went over the scheme that first year, we were playing a coverage that played with some outside trail. And, what I saw a difference in immediately from other schools I'd been at is the way you were teaching it to them, understanding this is what we want and here's why. Here's where your help is, and you having that playing experience, I think, like, got in their heads and they're like, man, this makes so much sense. But I'll never forget like the post work you were teaching the kids on, vision and weave and then turn and break and run. And I learned a lot from a technique standpoint, because one thing I always talk about on here is there's a difference between knowledge and application. I can sit here and tell you all the knowledge about a coverage, but do you have the techniques and the eye control and the vision to teach the kid to where he can be successful? And man, you improved our defense tremendously, and I learned a lot from you. But
And,
man, it's just stuff that you don't think about because you didn't play the position, and you brought that to it, and the knowledge was great.
yeah. And it's fun. It's fun when you have kids willing to be taught. It's like, if there's something I can and to recommend to kids, it's, man, be a sponge. Don't act like you freaking know anything. Even if you feel like you know the playbook in and out, shut your mind off and keep learning. I mean, there's so much information out there, and there's so many ways to get better.
Man, I think it's time to go to what we consider the favorite part of our show. It's our 2-minute drill. We're just going to throw questions at you, man. I guess the first one I'm going to ask, Coach, playing DB, what do you think one of the toughest routes to cover is?
Like in
Oh
man, are we
man,
talking about man coverage here?
Let's say man. Let's just say
man,
man. Like,
dude, the jerk route.
mm,
And the reason I say, listen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a little scat back, little 5'10", little jitterbug, or if it's a 6'4", 240-pound, 50-pound tight end. If the second your eyes get off the guy and you peek and that guy jerks around, all of a sudden you grab jerseys, you're getting hit with PIs, you're getting hit with separation, catching runs, like that right there is really, really hard. and if you're playing man to man, it could be really difficult. So understand leverages is on that is really important. And eye discipline, man. If you get nosy, you're getting beat.
Probably goes for most double moves. I mean, those are kind of, hey man, get home, get a sack.
That's right.
Double
That
move,
please,
man.
please.
So what's your most rewarding moment as a high school coach?
Having my first senior night.
That's
Like
awesome.
that's again, like I don't think about football, man. I think about
Was your first senior night at Cannon?
Yeah,
That
man.
Bolton was on a bye week watching the game, texting me during the game. My
was that
watch is going.
Metrolina?
That was where we came back. That was a
Yes.
Metrolina
Yeah.
game.
Great game.
Yeah,
Great game.
yeah.
That just again, people, kids, like that was Max. I mean, we had a great senior group. Like it was just. I
Great
obviously wish we would have had a little more success, like any coach does. But man, just seeing how important you can be to kids, and then thinking about the people that were important to me when I was playing, man, the coaches that I'm so fortunate, man. I had so many great influences. And but another story is my last year at Cincinnati, my favorite coach of all time was Kerry Combs, is the guy that Brian Kelly hired. I went from having this NFL, veteran coach, position coach, to now they're hiring this high school head coach. I remember being so freaking disappointed, thinking like, God, this is my senior year. And this guy, man, just in 1 year, and it had nothing really to do about football. It firmly had everything to do about believing in yourself. He had to, he always had this line. I remember the first game, he wrote this letter. He before every game, pregame, he'd write a letter to us and he'd read it out loud to the defensive backs. And the very first game, and he ended every letter with it, but the first time he did it, he said, "The most important thing I want you guys to understand is that you've prepared, you've done everything you needed to do. But," he said, "the most important thing I need you guys to know is be who you are, because who you are is good enough." Hearing that as a kid who's always been told that I wasn't good enough, or I needed to do more, and dude, it just, again, all these things and people came into my life at the right times. And, Kerry Combs, like another guy, such an unbelievable, had him for my senior year. Knowing those feelings, knowing those emotions, knowing those people that make a difference in your life, like, dude, just having that at Cannon with Max and Luke and all those guys, man, it's a special thing.
Man, I agree. That was a fun year, man. That was a really good
It's a
group
good
of kids.
group of kids, man. I
And
mean, I had
Bolton
those
coached
guys
them for
as
3 years.
freshmen. I mean, those special group, they won a lot of games, man.
They were. All right, Rookie, think back to you as a player. What was your pregame ritual on a Sunday as a player?
It's going to sound crazy. I used to fast. I used to not eat. I had been doing that since I was like in high school. It's just something I did not like, having food in my system. I felt like it always made me heavy. So hot shower, drink 3-4 bottles of Smart Water or whatever it was I had. I used to take these
Couple IVs.
That's right, a couple of these the vitamin IV bags. But I never would eat, and I would take some sort of pre-workout type stuff or whatever before the game. But yeah, I just did not like eating. It didn't matter if it was a night game. Now the night before, and that's probably the reason I didn't like to eat before the game. The night before, God, I felt like I ate a whole restaurant. So
Good deal.
Let me tell you one thing about Rookie. That dude can eat. So every Sunday coaches meeting, Catherine would try to make us a snack. One week it's pig and blankets. One day it's like buffalo chicken dip. One day it's sausage rotel dip. And Rookie, I swear, has 4 plates every week. And like I come home and Catherine's like, "Did you bring any back?" I said, "Nah, Rookie killed that." But that dude can freaking eat.
Hey man, if it's Chipotle, if it's some sort of dip or snack, or if it's some Brazilian steakhouse, my goal is to empty the restaurant.
Rookie
Hey,
walk in.
I'm destroying whatever's in front of me, man.
That's right.
From football to the plate
to food.
That's right. That's right.
Rookie'd walk in and say, "Man, my house killed the soda pop this week. We went through like 3 cases this week.
I'm telling you, we can't have that stuff in the house because, dude, it'll be gone in a day.
Dominate the pantry.
Dude,
Dominate.
it's over. It's over.
Oh man. Well, this may be a cliche one, but I'm always interested to hear these. What's your favorite moment as an NFL player?
Oh man. So my rookie year, we have this really up and down first year in Baltimore. I think we ended up having like 30 guys go to IR. So like I played a lot that year, but we get to the playoffs, and so I'm sorry, but like close to the end of the season, we play Dallas. And that year it was Dallas's last home game in Old Cowboy Stadium. So they pre-scheduled it. They put the Ravens on there year before. And dude, I'm talking about every freaking celebrity you could possibly think of in Dallas Cowboy history is there. And we beat the shit out of them. We ran them off the freaking turf. So then all of a sudden we do this, and then we catch a little fire and get some momentum. We go down to Miami first round of the playoffs, and we beat the freaking socks off them. We then go to play Tennessee, who had a bye week that year because they were the 13-3 or whatever. And dude, they were loaded. They had a great team, and we beat them. I made some pretty critical plays in that game. We beat them with a game-winning field goal. And then just get to the AFC Championship game. And during, we played the Steelers. And that, I always tell everybody, those 4 years between us and the Steelers, those were the most violent years of football ever seen in the NFL. The way we used to play each other was insane. So, playing them in that AFC, making an AFC championship as a rookie is just stuff. It's just stuff that you can never forget.
Man, I never made it past Division 2 years, but man, that just gets me fired up.
And that was what, 2010? Was that 10?
2008.
8. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, 2000. Because 2009, I ended up breaking my leg, and boy, yep. You want to talk about something that can derail your timeline in the NFL? Break and dislocated ankle. See what that does to you.
Man, all right. So I know you played with a lot of greats and you played against a lot of greats. Who would you say the toughest quarterback you went against? And that could be athletically, that could be just mentally. Like, who was one of the toughest quarterbacks? Every time you played against them, it was like, man, this dude just picks us apart.
Brady, easy. Brady was a killer. I mean, plain and simple. That dude, like, I remember we were playing. It was the AFC Championship game my last year in Baltimore. We're at New England, and I think we were winning, and he's driving. He drives them all the way down the field, gets on the goal line, and when Brady gets down the 1 yard line, everyone knows what's happening. It's a quarterback sneak. That dude, like, he has as many rushing touchdowns as any quarterback in NFL history. But he jumps over the center, and it looks like Ray snaps him in half, right? Catches him right in the back. It looks like he snaps him in half. And this dude gets up and just starts talking right in Ray's face. And it was just like, oh,
wow.
Wow. Guy, I mean, he didn't care. Like, he did not care. He was not like that. You want to talk about the NFL and what they're made of. Tom Brady is the greatest overachiever in sports history. But that is exactly what the NFL is. Tom Brady, it's different versions of Tom Brady in the sense that, it's not just freak athletes. Yes, are there freak athletes? No doubt. But mostly it's a bunch of dudes that was willing to do so much more than anybody else. And Tom Brady is the perfect example of that.
That's a great message just for any of us to hear. I mean, like, just in the way that we coach our kids. I mean, you don't have to be the greatest freak athlete of all time. And in fact, it's almost a curse if you are, because it almost makes you less willing to do the hard things because things come so easy.
Yep. And
And
the
so I
kids,
think it
but here's the
makes you
thing.
better.
Yep. And the kids, the thing is those kids that are freak athletes who are pushed and taught, those are Hall of Famers.
Correct.
Those, that's what they are.
Yep.
Right. Imagine if LeBron James didn't have a lot of the mentorship and stuff. Like he's,
Yeah.
he's 40 something years old and he's still doing like,
Crazy.
it's just, again, but those kids, again, and I'm speaking to those kids specifically, like if you do have all the talent in the world and you apply yourself, no one can touch you. And it's not because your ability, it's because you chose not to allow anybody to come close to you. It's a huge difference in those two things.
Coach, man, we appreciate you being on, man. You know, the last 2 years we've coached together, and in a way, I'm kind of sad that Bolton missed out on it, man, because you've shaped my coaching career and you taught me things, and man, we're just super thankful to have you. All y'all listening, don't forget about our links in our show notes. You can either sign up for a free 7-day trial with Pro Quick Draw, or with the promo code CoachSpeak, you can get a 30-day free trial with Team Builder. But Coach Rookie, man, but we appreciate you on, man.
No, thank you guys for having me on, and thank you guys for doing what you're doing, because this is really important, man. I think the communication to not only other coaches but to kids, I think is so important. I think there are a lot of kids that want to be better, and I think there's a lot of coaches that want to be better, and having access to information is so important. And we're in a day and age where people can get access, but it also takes, people like you guys who are going to put the right stuff out to mold that culture and future. So thank you guys for doing what you're doing, man.
Yes, sir. And we really appreciate it. I know I got better today, and I'm so thankful that we had you on, Coach, and we'll see you in the next one, guys.
Thanks for tuning into the Coach Speak podcast. If you're interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at coachspeakpodcast1@gmail.com. And if you have a question for our Q&A segment, don't forget to submit it through the form in the episode description. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.